This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us Ron Wilkins and Rebecca Patterson of the Vigil and the Sleeping Giant album. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you. I was so impressed with that with the album. It was eerie and so well produced. So could you tell us about how it came to be?
Sure.
Yeah, Ron, how about you go first?
It all started honestly from originally back in April of 2020 when I was back in Texas from New York City to play a Broadway show on tour. And I ended up, the tour, of course, got canceled because right around that time was the very early stages of COVID that were happening around the world and throughout this country. So I went back to visit with my family down in San Antonio, and that's where I ended up getting COVID. And I'm immunocompromised, so I was put into a medically induced coma for about a month and on a ventilator with a tracheotomy tube for about 37 days. Um, and going through all that, they put me on some pretty heavy duty drugs to just keep me out of it until they could try to figure out if they could come up with something to help heal me. Uh, and during that process, I lost all sense of time and what was going on around me. Um, but I was having the most incredibly vivid dreams and at times nightmares going through all of this. That when I came out of it over a month later, I found out through Becca what had happened in the world, and I was more than anything else just stunned. But then came to realize also that because I had been intubated and in a coma, that I had lost almost a third of my body weight, and I had to relearn how to walk, talk, eat, as well as just being able to eventually get back onto my trombones and to make my music again.
Do you still remember what you were dreaming?
Actually, I do to a point. Um, uh, the second movement of the suite, Comatose Dreams and Nightmares, kind of outlines a little bit of that with the cacophony that was going on in my head. I had all of these various visions of just running or sinking into a dark tunnel or just floating at one point where I was just swimming across a large dark ocean and not really ever getting feeling tired or anything, but just know where to go. I was just aimlessly going, and it was near the end of the time where I was starting to come out of it, where I saw a small light, and that's where I started moving towards, which eventually led me back to consciousness and to see the faces of the doctors, the nurses, and eventually to see Becca there as well. All just hoping the best that I would be able to come out of this and to get better and stronger again. So, I mean, there was just vivid colors and at times just straight up darkness and feeling like as if I was um, swirling down a dark tube.
Yeah, I didn't know what to think, but I really, really like the music. What about
Thank you.
what about flying? Did you ever feel that you were flying?
Not so much flying as I was swimming.
Mm.
I was moving through like I said, it was like a large dark ocean that seemed relatively still, and I just kept swimming and swimming and swimming, trying to find my way around. And then eventually, what turned into a large whirlpool that tried to suck me in, and then was that moment was when I saw the light
Mhm.
and was able to come out of that and go towards the light, which pretty much led me back to consciousness.
Are you in when you're in your waking hours, do you swim?
I used to swim. I used to swim when I was younger, but in the waking hours and such, not really. I mean, it's more so just a variety of different images and lots of music.
Mhm.
Always lots of music going on. throughout. I felt like I have soundtracks going on in my head. So once I came out of the coma, I had all of this music
Mm-hmm.
that was in my head based upon my experience, and including on the third movement, Awaken and Alleluia, where I literally felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude and just being alive.
Did you, when you caught COVID, did you, at that time, did you realize the danger? Where since you're immunocompromised, it's so hard to keep yourself safe.
Sure, I tried my best to be very careful about it, and of course, at that early stages, I was just wearing masks and trying not to get out and about and around people, for what that was worth. I was trying to be extra careful about that, but I still got it anyway.
Hmm. Yes, I've heard of that. Some people
Yeah,
are very careful, and it really doesn't help.
yeah, that's true. And I consider myself very fortunate. I
Yes.
Yeah,
really do.
I think the I guess sort of interesting thing about this is that this was so early in the pandemic, right? So we didn't really know anything. So Ron actually like did not realize that he had COVID at all. And so, because he and I were in contact this whole time, and figured, oh, you'll be safer in Texas than New York City because the population density, and he thought he was just having allergies, but he actually went to go take a nap and did not wake up from that nap. And his
Mm.
brother found him unconscious and called the ambulance. So he actually never realized that he was going to be put in a coma. So I think that's also like a very important piece of this, because
Yeah.
the big concept of the album is like the perception of the passage of time, right? So he went into the room that he was staying in to take a nap and then woke up and it was over a month later, versus, what I was going through, and everyone who knew him and was like following his story, because he was one of the first people that people knew that got really sick like that. So
Mhm.
there were a lot of people really following it. And every day just felt so long for me and for everybody, I think. And it really has this interesting like time distortion to how like time could have felt, that month felt so long to everyone else, but yet it almost feels like a snap of a finger, really. And so that's kind of like something that really inspired the album, is just like this perception of the passage of time, because it is something that everybody experiences, whether they're like doing something they really enjoy and time flies by, or they're like waiting for a test result. It's like time really drags. And I think it's something that's super relatable to everyone, but this was just like a very particular event where it really brought that out. And I think there's also a collective distortion of time just from, experiencing COVID, and how everyone kind of defines like the before COVID times and after times. And everyone seems to express like this time distortion. So that was like a very big piece of it.
The music that you heard, was that any familiar music, any of your music, any of your favorite artists, or was all the music entirely new?
It was all new. It was all new. There were themes that were going on in my head that I had in my head before, but after coming out of the coma, sorry, they became very clear. I mean, crystal, to the point where once I started getting my faculties together and then actually started putting notes together, eventually it turned into this suite.
So you woke up and then how long before you asked someone to give you a piece of paper to write down all that was going on in your head?
Actually, I didn't really ask anyone for paper at that time. I was more interested in just trying to uh, get stronger
Mhm.
again and get healthy. It wasn't until maybe around 2 to 3 months later
Oh.
where I actually started putting the ideas that I had in my head from the experience onto actual manuscript paper.
Was it hard to remember all of that, or did it just was so strong that it stayed with you?
It was so strong. I mean, it stayed with me for years, honestly. And it was really interesting because some of the songs, honestly, were little things that when I was growing up as a kid, my older and younger brother and I would actually do little recordings on a reel to reel player. And some of the stuff that we would just sing being silly uh, was turned into some of the music that I had going on. And I never really gave it as much thought until after coming out of the coma and realizing that some of these things that were going on were like little remembrances from my childhood.
Which song was that?
Well, on the Comatose Dreams and Nightmares, on the second movement, there's this one theme in there that goes da 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 diggity da 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 diggity da 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 da, and it just at the time, when you got with my parents, bless their hearts, they had three sons, and we're just bouncing up and back and forth in the back of the car, coming with all sorts of little crazy themes and such. And I remembered something like that happening to where we recorded it, and it just came back to me at that particular point while I was recovering.
When did you tell Becca about the what was going on in your head, all the music?
Um, when did I talk to you about
I
that?
mean, pretty much immediately. It was kind of a weird time because I actually was not able to visit. Nobody was able to visit him at all, like
Mm.
while he was there. And even after he woke up, like I had to stand outside the window, basically. But I mean, to be sedated for so long, it takes quite a amount of time, at least a week, for those drugs to clear out of your system. So I think a lot of, especially like his dreams and stuff were happening in the waking up process because they stop the drugs, but it still takes a long time for it to kind of get out of your system. But he was definitely just immediately talking about music, all the time. But like you said, he had to learn how to walk and talk and eat again. So that was kind of on the forefront. But I mean, yeah, we pretty much started thinking about this project. And, I started, once I was able to like collect myself a little bit more and know that he was going to be okay, I started also reflecting on like, what would I say musically about this particular experience. And so then we kind of just talked about it for a long time, like a year or two. And then after that really started kind of like, hey, let's, get this project going and back together. And I mean, it's just such a massive undertaking to do a big band album like this. So it definitely took several years to kind of get it refined and in a way that we could communicate it to other musicians and have them play our music the way that we intended.
Becca, did you find it hard to follow uh, when Ron uh, introduced you to those notes, those melodies?
I didn't fully like know what to expect. I've worked with Ron for a really long time, and we know each other very well musically. And I just the thing that's always so surprising to me is how much he's able to surprise me musically, even after all this time. And I think what he's gonna do. I know what he's gonna do, but he's just always throwing different loops. But I mean, once I started hearing it, it sounded like him, and it exceeded any expectation. It was just really groovy stuff, amazing melodies. It goes a lot of different places. Each track has like a very different sound. It still sounds like him, but it's just very cinematic.
How different from his usual work when you listen to it? How far away from what you usually recognize as Ron?
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is that like that kind of ties it all in that I kind of always know with Ron's music is that whatever it is that it grooves really hard. There's always a very strong sense of groove no matter what it is. But this really kind of strayed from what I've normally heard out of him, which is a lot of like bebop oriented things. And there's certainly like, bebop elements in this album, but it's really kind of like a fusion album of sorts. And like a really, the first movement, Big City Livin', kind of has like a very like Mingusy flair. The second movement is like kind of Zappa ish. Awaken Alleluia has like a, almost like a gospel feel. And I'd never really heard him completely go, go in those directions that aren't quite bebop. His previous album, Trombocalist, was a lot of like swing jazz and bebop type of groove. So this is definitely a different flavor.
What about the opening and the conclusions, Ron? Did they uh, were there? Did you feel that these songs had the openings and the working parts and the conclusion?
Um, well, actually, to me, um, as far as the openings go, I had always had a tendency in my music at times to expand upon an opening. to where I might have a beginning riff and such, and I wanted to let it grow and to develop until eventually it gets to a point where it's time to go ahead and bring in the theme itself. And each one of the movements has something of that element to it. From the first movement where it starts off with me on the trombone and singing simultaneously to the other trombonist, the great Ed Neumeister, playing with me, and then from there with the wonderful bassist Boris Kozlov coming in and playing some really cool groove behind it on an electric bass solo that I think is just phenomenal. And then from there it eventually expands into this harmonic movement that's still an opening, and then it gets into the theme itself. And then from there we go into the solos and afterwards. And each movement has something of that element to it. Even the last tune on the album, the Like a Brother, has the same kind of thing. I've always been attracted at times and listening and going back into my past to hearing artists who don't just come right in and just immediately play the theme. I want to hear it grow. I want to hear it develop. And it's been kind of a trademark in my writing as well as in my playing.
Even before this incident.
Yes.
Okay. But then how was this incident different from what you usually did before?
Oh my gosh. Well, after going through such a life-altering and life-changing experience, what it did was it just gave me even more incentive to get this music out, because it's not just the musical elements of it, and there's a lot to it, but there's a story. And I always was attracted when I was a younger musician and listener to songs that had stories, even albums that would go ahead and give you a certain theme, and then it would develop on that theme further from the beginning of it all the way to the end of the album. And this one has a similar kind of vibe and take to it. I just felt like everything that I had done in the past leading up to this album was just a step in that direction. Eventually, now that I've gotten to the point where we've been able to collaborate and make the music come to life, it's like a fully formed work that you feel like has been like just baking for a while. And this one has now come to full fruition. I've had experiences similar to that before, but nothing with quite the level of revelation the way this one would hit. And this one to me just became not only a passion project to work with Becca and to do this stuff, because we do a lot of music together, but also as a means of a revelation of sorts.
And it's very different from what you usually do. And what about your listeners? What do they say about such a difference? I'm sorry that I didn't listen to your other albums, but is it
No
very
worries.
different?
It is different.
Yes.
It is very different. I mean, the other albums, like Becca was mentioning, are a little bit more swing, bebop, modern jazz oriented.
Mm-hmm.
This one is more of a jazz fusion, where it's got all these things that are in there, but it's all very groove based.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even upon coming out of the suite and listening to the first tune, Sulk City, there's this sense of groove and vibe that goes on through it. It goes from the perspective that I had to the perspective Becca had.
Yeah, I think what's also been interesting is that we did a few big band gigs before the pandemic happened, and the music that we had and the book that we had for the musicians to play was a lot different vibe. It was, again, like very swing oriented, kind of bebop oriented. And so when we brought this out and people who had worked with us before heard our other iteration of our big band, I think they were just like, they were very shocked, because I think they thought they knew what it was going to kind of sound like, and it was just like totally different from that. So it was definitely, but people have been really receptive to it, and they really like it, and we're just so thrilled that people are digging it so much, and saying that it feels like really fresh to them, and it's just like, it's a different sound than what they've been hearing. And also just like the whole idea of a concept album is very rare these days, just because of the nature of how people consume music.
So this could be called a breakthrough album then, you say.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
very much so, very much so.
Eh, Do you see influences at all from other artists and people that you admire that you've studied in this in this music, or there's no appearance at all of them?
Actually, I do see varied influences throughout. I mean, some of the bands that I would listen to when I was growing up, like, of course, Chick Corea and Return to Forever, or like Weather Report, and of course, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker, John Coltrane, Wayne Shorter. I mean, all of these guys were part of the influences. But then also there's things like listening to, at certain times, the music of Frank Zappa, or the great band leader Don Ellis, who experimented a lot with mixed meter and time signatures, and yet had this crazy frenetic energy that would come through in his music. Um, I felt like those things were all a part of my growing up musically and understanding where the music is inside me. And in turn, it's great to finally go ahead and have, as crazy an experience as it was to get to this point, to have now the means of being able to bring that music out, because it is different, very different from what either Becca or I have done before.
Yeah, we also really wrote for the individual musicians in the band,
Mm-hmm.
because, Ron and I have both lived in New York City for about 12 years now. And throughout that time, we've both been in a lot of very different musical situations and just soaking up, what New York City has to offer. So we really admire every single person that is in the band, and we've played with them in a lot of situations, and there's certain things that we had changed in the process to kind of like cater to those musicians, especially like having Boris Kozlov and working with him with the Mingus big band. Both of us have played with that band a lot. And like my friend Zach Zinger, who plays the Bonsari on Near East and also the Iwi solo in that first movement, he was someone I went to school with, and we hadn't necessarily thought, oh, let's do an Iwi solo in that first movement, and I hadn't thought like, oh, let's use a Bonsari instead of like a
Mm-hmm.
soprano sax. But once we started, the vision started getting clear of who we wanted where. It was like, oh, this person has an amazing skill set. How could we utilize that in the context of this? And so that was also very inspiring, just to be around those musicians and being able to write for them. And that also really like influenced the way that the music sounded and how it came out, and it was very intentional.
Would you say that there has ever been an artist that has shades of the visual and the sleeping giant?
I'd like to think that there are artists that I have listened to in my past as well as present, who are still very creative and believe in the innovative approach to music and finding ways to be able to bring out some of their elements of what they've learned in the past, who they listen to be able to come up with something new and different. Also, as real quick, I got to throw this in as a quick side note. Um, One of the best things that happened in the recording session was that as we were going through this music with everyone, all of the musicians just loved the experience. They loved not only playing it, but afterwards, we got so many compliments, not only from the artist who performed with us, but also from the recording engineer, saying this is one of the best and most fun times we've had making music.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was really cool, and it kind of let both of us know that what we're doing is the right stuff.
I think about also like Quincy Jones. He did a lot of really cool album like Walking in Space,
Or
that
Hula
type of
Matari.
thing, and
Hmm.
Gil Evans, Stratus Funk. I feel like those also were really, I mean, I was definitely really listening to those albums when I was going through the writing process, and how even they would take just song titles and whatever was happening musically kind of fit these song titles. And also, I mean, even like Mingus, he has some really strange uh,
Yeah.
song titles, right? And then you listen to the music, and somehow it just kind of makes sense. So that was definitely, there's a lot of artists who have really done that in the past, and we kind of like latched onto that and thought like, man, how can I create this picture and do it as effectively as some of these people like Quincy Jones or Gil Evans or Mingus.
What famous artists listen to your album, and what did they comment about it? Maybe even before the air date. Did you let anybody listen to it before the air date? And
Hmm.
What were their comments like your friends, the artists?
Yeah, I mean, we also made an animated music video on YouTube for the first movement, Big City Livin'. So we showed this all ahead of time and stuff to John Lee, who is the great bassist who runs the Dizzy Gillespie All Star Big Band and was Dizzy Gillespie's last bassist.
Oh,
And he played with Dizzy for I think like 10 years or something like
Hmm.
that. So and we both worked with him in the Dizzy All Star Big Band, and I think he was also just blown away, and and another thing that a lot of these guys who've been around a lot say, they're really into how it sounds, like the mix, and
Hmm.
just how strong the mix is and the mastering and the audio quality itself. But yeah, John was really fascinated by it, and he really enjoyed that as well. So we've had a lot of really nice thoughts and good vibes from a lot of musicians around. Yeah.
do you have any music left that you haven't used yet from those dreams?
Yes. In fact, I've got some ideas as well that I'll be putting to pen and paper, or in this case, to a laptop
Oh,
and software notation. There's probably about 4 or 5 other songs that I'm looking at for either turning into another big band recording or looking at a future project where I'm doing more of a small group project again and actually using more of that material. Because, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that was going on in my head at the time. And since I've come out of it, I'm thinking I've got about maybe 4 or 5 other songs in there that are still a part of that overall mix that I definitely want to get out. And plus, the other side of it is that not a day goes by where I don't wake up and have some music going on in my head.
mm. Oh,
Not a day, not a moment. So
oh.
there's always a soundtrack of sorts going on. So at any given time, I could sit down, pull up my phone, and just record a quick little song or ditty that I have going on in my head, and that will expand into another piece of music.
So when you what are your plans now? Are you going to uh leave this one to rest and then resume those other songs later? Are you already working on those songs that you haven't used yet?
Well, at this particular time, I'm just really busy with working with other people and other projects. Both Becca and I are coming off of playing this huge swing band party over on the deck of the USS Intrepid this past weekend. And I've got other things that are coming up, along with, of course, some of my teaching schedule because I work with private students. And then next month, I'm going to be doing a tour through Texas where I'll be starting off around North Texas and then going down from there to Austin for a few days and then from there to San Antonio.
So did you grow up in Texas? You sound so familiar with Texas.
I did. I did. I grew up in San Antonio.
Uh,
My father was in the Army, and that's where we ended up being stationed.
and oh, yes. What about your family? What did they say when they listened to this album? Is it totally well, Becca, you did say that there are patterns that are similar to Ran's work, but it is so I can't imagine there any other album that is like this.
Hmm.
Would you could you think of any album that is even remotely close to what you accomplished in this album?
I'm not really sure.
Mm.
I know that there's people who've done similar concept. Like Fred Hirsch actually had a similar near death experience, and he
Oh,
did a lot of solo piano stuff, and did an album about 20 years ago. But I think that this one, it's a very particular thing, and I mean, even just using Rhodes and electric bass in a big band is kind of a rare thing, especially nowadays. I mean, I know there was a time that that was like a bigger thing, and I can't really think of an album that I would even quite parallel with this project. I mean, of course, there's like a lot of great albums that influenced it, but I think we did manage to make something that's like pretty original.
pretty very unique. Uh, so the no, influences that you could think of. It was just totally in your head. And this, have you written it down yet? Those that you haven't used yet, or are they just still in your head?
Uh, for the most part, they're still in my head.
Oh my goodness.
But I mean, I'm at any given time, uh, will sit down and just relate one of the ideas that I have going.
The thing about Ron is that he is absolutely a musical genius. I will say this because I have witnessed it. He also has perfect pitch.
Oh.
So, I mean, the thing is that if Ron hears something once, he has it memorized. I've never seen him not know a tune. He knows hundreds of tunes, the lyrics, big band charts. He can pull out the sax soli from Thad Jones' Tiptoe. I've seen him do that on a gig, like improvising one of the hardest sax solis ever off the top of his head in a different key. So for him to not write it down, it might sound a little strange to the average person, but like he's absolutely a musical encyclopedia. I am not quite that way. I really do have to write stuff down, or I like will do a voice note, but I'm amazed at how fluent he can be, and I mean, even when we went to write these charts, they were not written down too far in advance of the recording session, and I was kind of like these charts aren't ready yet, but he was like, no, it's in my head, and then he just sits down and just writes it without even really having to play through much on the piano because again, he has perfect pitch and he truly hears everything.
But you don't hear everything. That is much as fun.
Not exactly like that. I don't have perfect pitch,
Oh.
and I'm still like, set different harmonies and stuff. It really helps me to kind of play it on the piano as I've developed and gotten older and more experience under my belt. It's getting easier and easier, but I definitely don't have like a perfect memory of stuff when I hear it once. But I'm getting there. I'm working on it.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No.
No, but she's pretty amazing, honestly. Becca is such a talented musician, and just has shown me that not only as a composer but also as a performer as well as a teacher, that she's one of the best I've ever worked with. She's absolutely amazing, and it's always a privilege to be able to work with her on other gigs and such. And this particular one that we worked on together was just one of the most exciting and one of the best things I think I've ever done musically in my life.
Mhm.
And to be able to have her chiming in and then writing her music and asking me about it and what did I hear on it. And I mean, we bounced a lot of ideas off of each other in the process of putting this together.
I think because we approach it differently and it added an extra element to it, like the way that we process our process of writing and doing things really did provide a different kind of perspective. I think, if you listen through the album, the whole way without stopping, those first four movements very strongly Ron, as soon as you get to my tune, it's a very different tone, but somehow I think it really does work together despite it being very different type of writing.
Do you have a new project coming up yet? Uh,
I've pretty much just kind of like focused on this one. I mean, this is such a massive undertaking, and it's very expensive,
oh,
So it's like, as much as I would love to just crank out another album, it's like this is my first album as a leader, so it's like
oh,
got to get the traction and try and secure funding and getting grants and stuff like that. So definitely am always thinking about my next project and things like that. And I've been playing a lot with the Christian McBride big band, and I've been hearing what he's doing and some of the charts that he's had written for certain guests. I've found really interesting, and that's kind of been delving in the back of my mind. For example, I was just doing the McBride's jazz cruise, and he had Angelique Kidjo singing James Brown,
hmm.
which I just never would have thought of that on any planet. But there's a lot of genius to what he is doing, and I'm very inspired by what he's doing. And I've been thinking a lot about it, and how I can take that inspiration from what I've been doing with him and put that into my new charts. And that's been a really really cool process to think about. But yeah, definitely still kind of like trying to get this album, get a few more live performances. We have a couple leads, and hopefully we'll be able to perform it live a few more times. And yeah.
In what city? All around?
Probably mostly New York at this point, but we are reaching out to some other, colleges and stuff like that, coming in as a guest clinician and having like some college bands play. We would love to play in any city in LA, but again, it's like always bringing a whole big band is logistically very difficult. But it was something and expensive. But it is something we would love to do, and we're exploring ways of trying to get that to happen.
When you talk with young people, when they listen to your album, did you find any that listened, and what do they think?
Yeah, actually, I have a few young students, and I have one student who's now a 10th grader in high school now. And we had him come into the rehearsal and let him play my part, with me, so he could feel what it like would to play with a real big band, and play with professional musicians. He loved the album, showed a lot of his friends. He goes to one of the arts high school here, and they're really into it. And a lot of these younger musicians that are at like Manhattan School of Music and Juilliard, I cross paths with them a lot, and they've also really been into it. Along with, Ron also has students as well, and yeah.
And I was just earlier this month, I was in Austin doing some concerts, actually at the end of last month as part of Jazz Appreciation Month and also for International Jazz Day, where I got to go ahead and get some younger ears onto our music on the album. And everyone who's listened to it, honestly, it's just been blown away.
Mhm.
Because they once they go ahead and they sit down with it, all of a sudden they realize that there's so much there. There's so much there in it. And then, of course, the whole groove element has them just bouncing their heads like this, because they start really not only hearing it, but they feel it.
Mhm.
So we're getting some really, really positive feedback from literally almost every age group.
Yeah.
So the okay. So what do they say again? They're very surprised by it. What like your fans, let's say the younger ones. What when do you get feedback from them, and what do they usually say?
Yeah, I think a lot of them are surprised because uh, there's a lot of new big band music coming out, but a
Uh,
lot of it is it has a particular sound. A lot of it just because of instrumentation and approaching it from certain people, like whether it's like Jim McNeely or like Thad Jones. Like people are very heavy into that right now, and we did something different by having like a French horn in the ensemble, and also having tuba in there, and using the electric bass and that Rhodes sound. I think that just that in and of itself, even like beyond the writing, that different instrumentation and also that like electric sound and really groove bass rather than just swing bass, I think it really just throws them for a loop in a great way, in a really nice way. I mean, even like my best friend, the first time she listened to it, her name's Lo Wood, fantastic bari sax player, actually out of Illinois. And she was just like, I couldn't listen to this for more than a minute without making a stank face every, every couple of minutes. So I took that as like a very, high compliment that, it's getting the stank face, cause it's grooving so hard. So I think that really is kind of what's shocking people initially. And then when they are settling in and listening to it more and more, just all the motivic things and really having these almost hooks, right? Like I feel like each tune kind of has like a hook, a melody that can really be an earworm.
Mhm. Um, If our listeners want to learn more about you, Ron Wilkins and Rebecca Patterson, and your album, where should they go?
Yeah, we both have a website. Mine is RebeccaPattersonMusic.com. And also Ron has ronwilkins.com, and we have actually on we both have the same page on her websites. It's like a liner notes page where we have a documented journey through both of our experiences with pictures and inspirations for each of the tracks and what each of the track exactly like means and things like that.
Mm.
And pictures of Ron when he was going through his recovery and just kind of showing like how far he's come, and just it's just so crazy that he's able to play and perform at such a virtuosic level after going through such a crazy physical experience. And at like it's amazing that he has basically come back full speed, and has all of his mind and all of his faculties and stuff like that. And I think it's a really inspiring thing to see somebody go through something so traumatic and be able to come back from that. And I really think that that's something that everybody could benefit from right now. Just like having that persistence and knowing that persistence through hard times can really pay off, and you can make things good again if things are not going so well for you right now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. We really love the album, and we wish you much luck and in the future, and more albums to come.
Thank you so much. We really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
you.
us. And yes, more albums to come, more music to come, and more good times.
Yes. Okay. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.